一个人的礼物，你的心慢慢吃。
Hi, I'm Kelly Mountain,
And hi, I'm Kathleen Donovan, and Kelly and I are both special education coordinators at Your Parent Resource Center in Arlington Public Schools.
and we are so happy to have you with us today so that we can tell you a little bit about our Parent Resource Center.
So, Kelly and I thought it would be nice to tell you a little bit more about your team at the Parent Resource Center. Kelly, why don't we start with you?
Sure, I'm Kelly Mountain, and I have been at the Parent Resource Center for about 3 years now. And prior to coming to the PRC, my background was in school psychology. So I worked in the schools for about 15 years as a school psychologist. Very happy to join the PRC when an additional full-time position became available.
And my background is as a special education teacher. Career teaching preschool students who had disabilities in New York City. And in my career here in Arlington, I was a special education teacher at Randolph Elementary and Tuckahoe Elementary prior to coming to the central office to become the Child Find Coordinator until I joined the team at the Parent Resource Center many years ago. And I've been very grateful to work at the PRC since that time, along with Kelly recently and Emma Pearl, who is our bilingual administrative assistant. Emma and I have worked together for over 17 years at the PRC, and Emma is an integral member of our team and also is bilingual, so she's able to work with Kelly and I if we are working with families who speak Spanish. And then also if there are families who speak other languages, we can access the Language Service Registration Center as well as using the language line. So a little bit more about what the PRC actually is. Originally, the PRC was started with seed money from the Virginia Department of Education, but I'm very honored and proud that Arlington Public Schools recognized more than 30 years ago the importance of ensuring that families have the information and support and resources that they need to be active members of their child's educational team. So Arlington Public Schools has funded our center for over 3 decades with this knowledge that families are critical members of IEP teams and educational teams in schools. So the Parent Resource Center is both a physical space. We're located now at Arlington Public Schools administrative offices at the Syfax Education Center. And we're also a program that's designed to ensure that families have those resources to partner with their teammates in their child's school. And our goal at the Parent Resource Center is to both promote family engagement as well as parent leadership. And like many of you, Kelly and I are now working from home along with Emma Pearl, our administrative assistant. We're delighted that we have the technology to continue our work. We've been actually very pleasantly surprised, I think, at how seamless the transition has been. We were very worried initially when schools closed about our ability to continue to work and connect with families, but using video conferences and continuing with phone calls just as we would if we were in person, along with learning how to now offer sessions that Kelly will tell you about in a little while virtually. We've been thrilled at the number of families that have joined us for virtual sessions and families that have reached out to us. So your virtual Parent Resource Center has been up and running since schools closed in March. We deeply miss our center and we miss seeing you in person, but we're very, very glad that we're able to still continue to connect with you virtually. So I've talked a little bit about who we are and what we are. I think the most important part of our session is why we are, why we exist. Arlington Public Schools adopted a family and community engagement policy, a FACE policy, several years ago. But long before that, Arlington, through its commitment to the Parent Resource Center, has recognized the critical and important role that parents play as members of their educational team. And the decision that APS made to continue to fund a Parent Resource Center has now been validated by dozens and dozens of research studies that have shown, beyond dispute, that parent resource centers and family engagement is not just great for families and schools, but it's actually very correlated to students' success and achievement in school. So in other words, the more involved families and parents are in their child's education, the more successful that student will likely be in school and the better the outcomes, which is great for schools, it's great for families, but most importantly, it's great for students. And I'm going to just pause for a moment. We use the words families and parents a lot. When we talk about parents, we know that there are many adults who might play that role in a child's life, perhaps a grandparent, an aunt or an uncle, a foster parent. So for the purposes of this presentation, when we use the word parent, we mean everybody who is parenting a child. Parents play critical roles as members of their child's educational team. First of all, you're your child's advocate. You are committed to your child, and until such time as your child hopefully becomes a strong young adult self-advocate, parents are in the role of advocating for their child. Parents are in a unique position to be creative problem solvers. You intimately know your child, you know what's going well, you know when your child might be having some struggles or concerns. So you're in a great position to become a problem solver and work collaboratively with teams at your child's school to address any concerns that might arise. Kelly and I talk a lot about ensuring that parents really view themselves as active and equal members of educational teams, whether it's a student support team or an IEP team, and we'll talk about those terms a little bit later in the session. Parents are active members, and in fact, you are the long-term and consistent member of your child's team. Many of our students are getting special education supports or services from the time that they're even in pre-K. So from the time that a child is in pre-K all the way through elementary school, middle school, high school, and beyond, parents are often the one consistent member along with the child as they become able to join the team. The one consistent member of that team. So you know your child's history, you know what's been successful in the past, you know what approaches have worked. So when we take parents' ability to share that unique expertise and knowledge and history along with your teammates and work collaboratively, that's when teams work best. So adding parent expertise and staff expertise can only help a student. So parents are in unique positions to contribute to the team. And finally, Kelly's going to talk in a little while about the special education process. There are a lot of consent requirements. Pretty much any decision that is made about your child requires your consent. So parents are also decision makers as part of the team. And that's why it's so important, I think, for families to have this support and this information and the resources they need to make informed decisions. So Kelly's going to tell you a little bit now about our student support processes along with special education.
Thanks, Kathleen. So oftentimes, Kathleen and I receive phone calls or visits from parents that are just concerned about their student. They don't really know what's going on, but they're concerned. And several years ago, Arlington Public Schools began an initiative known as the Student Support Process. And within this process, there have been put into every school student support teams. And these teams are designed as, I like to think of them as problem-solving teams. A student can be referred by a parent or a staff member, and a team will come together to really brainstorm ways to support a student that might be having some difficulty. These teams are made up of various people within the school, and our parents, as Kathleen said, play a critical role in helping to problem solve and make some decisions about helping the student. The teams are based on what type of person should be a part of the team that knows the student best or that has information on supports for the student. So we come together as a student support team. We talk about the student, their strengths, their needs, and then there are three possible outcomes. The first outcome is known as an intervention plan. And an intervention plan is designed for the student and the student's needs, and it can be strategies or interventions that would help the student be more successful in his regular education classroom. So for example, if we had a little one that was struggling with learning to read, there might be a special reading group that that child could participate in to develop more comprehensive phonological awareness. A behavior plan might be put in place for a student that is having trouble focusing. So these plans are put, as I said, into place in the regular education classroom. We usually like to see how the child progresses with this plan for about 6 to 8 weeks. And the teachers are keeping track of the child's progress, and the team will come back to take a look. The second outcome of a student support team meeting is the Section 504 process. And the Section 504 process is for students that have identified disabilities that might require a support plan that includes only accommodations. When looking at eligibility for Section 504, we are considering that a student has a documented disability and that impacts a student to a significant degree. Once that is established through an eligibility process, then the student is entitled to a Section 504 plan, and this plan is developed again with the needs of the student so that he or she might be more successful in the classroom. Some examples of accommodations might be extended time for students when taking evaluations, for work completion. They could include cueing for students that have trouble focusing. So really a large number of accommodations are available for students that qualify for Section 504. The third outcome of a student support team meeting is the special education process. And I think that Kathleen would agree, we spend a lot of time working with our parents in understanding the special education process and helping to walk them through and navigate the process, as it can be really complex. So let's talk a little bit more in depth about special education. I like to think about the process as a cycle. So our student support team has decided to refer a student to the special education process. And the first meeting that would be involved in the special education process is called a student study committee meeting. And at that meeting, there's a lot of discussion about the need for an evaluation to determine eligibility for special education. And this evaluation process is quite complex and very comprehensive. And the evaluations look at a whole lot of information developed on the student. So their psychological processing, their learning style, and we also want to make sure that we get information from the parents to learn about how the student is outside of the school building. So this evaluation process takes about a couple of months, really. And at the end of the evaluation process, the team would come back together in what is known as an eligibility team. And the discussion centers around whether the student meets the criteria for special education or specially designed instruction. The state gives us 13 different categories, and some examples are specific learning disability, autism, developmental delay. And we look at the student's needs and we look at all the data that has been developed within the evaluations to determine if the student is eligible with a disability as classified within Virginia regulations. So if the student is found eligible, within about a month, the team would come together to develop what's known as an individualized education program. As Kathleen mentioned, parents are critical in all the steps of special education. They sign off on special education eligibility, and they were also very helpful in helping to develop the Individualized Education Program, or IEP. Within the IEP, again, we look at the students' strengths and their needs, and individual goals are developed, services are finalized, accommodations are also included. And once the parent consents for that IEP, it is put in place to assist the student for a year. Now, that's not to say that we can't come back within a year's time and tweak it a little bit, tweak the goals, add some accommodations, that kind of thing. But typically the IEP is good for a year. And then the team would come back together and develop a new IEP for the coming year. The student then is within special education for 3 years, at which time another meeting would be held known as the reevaluation planning meeting. And at that meeting, the team decides, do we need to do some more evaluations to consider eligibility again for this student? If so, once again, we move to an evaluation process. So that is a very, very short of the special education process, but we're often helping parents navigate each of these links within the cycle so they can feel like active members of their child's team. So as Kathleen said, we are virtual right now, but we feel that we are very able to connect with our families even within this virtual world. And these are kind of the 4 buckets within our work with parents. So we're going to talk a little bit about each of these. Individual consultations. I think Kathleen and I spend a lot of our time working with parents individually. And again, a lot of our consultations revolve around the special education process, but sometimes parents, they really don't know where to start. And we hope to guide them through to problem solve, to think, where should you go for help within your school? Where might you go outside of the school for some help? Kathleen and I are lucky to say that we have the gift of time. So we are able to meet with parents during school hours or even before or after sometimes, and really sit down and give them as much time as they need to talk about their students and what they might need to become more successful. The other thing that Kathleen and I are very fortunate to do is to work with many, many folks, both within our schools and then outside in the community. I would say that especially since the pandemic began back in March, we've worked very closely with our Office of Special Education within the Department of Teaching and Learning to make sure that all of the communications that go out also include good supportive information for our families with students with disabilities. So that's been something that we've been working very hard on the past several months. We also are so fortunate to work with several parent advocacy groups, Arlington Special Education PTA and the Arlington Special Education Advisory Committee. Both groups, are just made up of the most wonderful families supporting advocacy for students with disabilities. So Kathleen and I work closely with both SEPTA and ASAC. We work with a lot of community agencies and organizations, a few, the National Alliance for Mental Illness, Arlington Reading, the Parent Education and Advocacy Training Center, and then numerous other community resources. Oftentimes, families are looking for tutors. They might be looking for educational coaches or outside mental health professionals. we can't recommend per se, but we do maintain lists of all of these outside professionals to help families and students that might need just a little extra support outside of their school day. Parent learning opportunities. We are so fortunate to have so many parent learners within our community. And Kathleen and I have both hosted numerous parent learning opportunities or support others in providing opportunities for families. All of our learning opportunities are free. We welcome all of our families. We also welcome our staff. We love the idea of our staff and families learning side by side. And these are just a few of the different opportunities that we have offered over the years. We have numerous special education sessions and mental health sessions typically that are held throughout the year.
Thanks, Kelly. One of the pandemic silver linings has been the ability for us to connect with families in new ways using digital resources. So Kelly and I have been working really hard to expand and further develop our digital resources. We'll show you a few quick examples, but we would encourage you, our website here, apsva.us/PRC, contains all of these links and more. But let's take a quick look here. We developed a new resource called School Closure Tools because we know that these unique times sometimes call for new and different resources. So if a parent visits our School Closure Tools website, you're able to find information on coronavirus, information on how to help kids understand about why they might need to wear masks, hand washing. There's a lot of information here in our virtual learning, information on mental health and wellness, fun and recreation, activity and movement. So please do check this website out. You can find it right here, School Closure Tools for Parents. We have a lending library. This is our library here at the Parent Resource Center, but what you may or may not know is that families are able to search through our online digital resource center library. So this will bring you to this website. If you go to the PRC's resources page and click on PRC Library, there's a button that says access our collection. So earlier today, I just typed in IEP, and if you pull up IEP, you'll be able to see books and resources that we have related to IEPs. We also have a family resource and information guide. I'm really proud of this guide. It was developed by a team of staff and parents, and then primarily written by one of our parents, Alex Arriaga. I want to give her a little shout out, who worked with me to create a guide pretty much to help serve as a companion guide to the special education cycle that Kelly just walked you through. And for each step of the process in our guide, you'll find at a glance pages and sheets to help families prepare for every single meeting. This guide is available online in both English and Spanish and contains, as I mentioned, kind of walking families through each step of the special education cycle with a sheet that will help you know what the meeting's about, what your role as a parent is in that meeting, questions that you might want to ask the team, and information to share in advance of meetings. So you can find all of that here, along with record-keeping tools, information on how to introduce your child to new staff members as your child might transition from one school or program to another, and then lots of links to community resources and information. So do please check that out. And then finally, all of the information that we share is usually communicated electronically through Arlington Public Schools School Talk messages. We now are posting these messages on our School Talk messages website, where they can be translated into a wide variety of languages. So if you go to this page, you'll see a post for each message that we send out each week. And then if you click up here, there's a little tiny globe. It's exciting because we can provide translations into all of those various languages using the APS website's translation function. We know it's not perfect and there may be some miscommunication, but I think the technology is getting better and better all the time, and we're very pleased to be able to communicate these messages in a variety of languages. So For the most part, all families that have a student who's receiving special education services and has an IEP should automatically be receiving our Monday messages. We send out a message usually each Monday during the school year, and occasionally some supplementary messages as well. So if you have a student who's receiving special education services, you should be automatically getting these. If you're not, please do let us know, and we'll be sure to figure out how we can add you to the list. If you don't have a child receiving special ed services, so perhaps your child is just getting support through an intervention plan, or maybe has a Section 504 plan, or has none of those things, but you would just like to join our list, we welcome you. Whether you're a community member or a parent, you can just email us here at prc@apsva.us to subscribe, and there's also a link. You can use this QR code that's on your screen, or you can call us at the PRC. So this again is our website, apsva.us/PRC. We really hope you'll check out our resources, and we look forward to connecting with you. Kelly and I are working full-time from home. Our typical hours are about 8:30 to 4 p.m., but we know that families might not have the same flexibility that we do during those hours. So we really want to be available to you at your convenience at a time that's great for you. So we are always happy to set up an early morning meeting or a late afternoon or an evening time to chat. We've even talked with families on the weekend. So just let us know what works for you and how we can best support you. You can reach us by phone at 703-228-7239, or email us at prc@apsva.us. And we do look forward to connecting with you and hearing from you and working together and collaborating with you. Thanks so much for watching our video today.
And we look forward to connecting with you soon.
Bye.